We were all a group of athletes who had been overlooked our entire life. And we kind of all banded together and was like, well, let's show the world what we've got. My drive to want to be the best probably came, to be honest, from being a twin sister. I had a twin sister who was able-bodied, and I was the twin that had the disability. And her and I kind of navigated the world together. You know, we all have big dreams and we all know what we want to be, but there are going to be so many people that you come to head with where they're not going to share the same vision as you. And they're the kind of people you just don't really want in your teams.
I'm Lorna Jane Clarkson, activewear designer, author, and founder of Lorna Jane. And this is Never Give Up, a series where we explore the stories of women who have faced challenges head on and come out stronger. In this episode, I'm joined by Ellie Cole, one of Australia's most celebrated Paralympians, whose resilience and competitive spirit have inspired so many people. We'll talk about how her swimming began as a path to rehabilitation and grew into a career fueled by her "why can't it be me" mindset. Ellie Cole, welcome.
Thank you.
Before we start though, can I just say 17-time Paralympian medal winner.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
The most decorated Paralympian of all time.
Female Paralympian.
Of all time.
Yeah, not bad. In
It's
Australia.
incredible.
In Australia.
That's
I'll
a
have
pretty
to
big
keep
country.
going. I know, I do have to keep going if I want to become worldwide with that.
So it begs the question, at what age did you begin swimming?
Mm-hmm.
And can you talk about that moment when you knew it was going to be your thing?
Oh, okay. So I started swimming at the age of 3. I had just had my leg amputated about 8 weeks prior. So I was quite literally thrown into the pool for rehabilitation and went around in circles for a little while, but learnt how to swim in a straight line. And every kid in Australia learns how to swim, especially if you live on the East Coast. I grew up around a lot of Australian beaches, so I just went through the normal learn to swim program as everyone else did, but started a bit earlier because of my rehabilitation. And in terms of when I thought that swimming was going to be a thing for me, probably not until I was like 20 years old, to be honest. I started on the Australian swim team and kept doing it because I loved it. But in terms of wanting to chase greatness or become a gold medalist, not until I was a little bit older.
And do you know what happened? What was the catalyst for that?
The catalyst for me wanting to be the best in the world all came down to racing in my first World Championships and taking silver, and then going to my first Paralympics after that and winning silver, and just knowing that someone out there was better than I was, to be honest.
I love that.
It's like, that's not going to do. And then I just became enamoured with high-performance sport, high-performance mindset, and just, I think, mostly wanting to prove people wrong, because a lot of people, when I was growing up, saw me as just a girl that had a disability, and I knew that I could be so much more than that. And I think swimming was a really great outlet for me to be able to showcase what I was physically able to do, because traditionally speaking, athlete and disability, no one ever really correlated those two words together when I was growing up. So I was like, well, let's smash those two words together and see what I can make of it.
And boy, has it changed. And you've been part of that. I really think you've been part of that. It's fantastic, you know. So the world is changing, and it is changing for the better.
I think it is. And, you know, there's this really common saying, and I hear it all the time, and it really irritates me for some reason, but there's that saying, you can't be what you can't see. That saying doesn't sit well with me. People saying all the time, you know, we really need role models, we need people at the forefront to be role models, but someone has to be the first person to do it. And I've never really had that mindset of you can't be what you can't see. I've always had the mindset of, well, why can't it be me? And I think I've really run with that, and I obviously put that into action on the Australian swim team, and now I'm trying to put it into action into many other different areas.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's a really great purpose in life. And that you can't be what you can't see. I mean, I experienced that when I started my business, because I don't know whether you know, but I was the first person to coin the phrase activewear. And it was exactly the same. So, and I've also read somewhere that you are eternally optimistic. So here was me with this vision of activewear, and I was also this really bubbly, optimistic person that no one would take seriously. And a woman, of course, well, a young girl really, and just trying to convince people that activewear was going to be a thing. I was up against that hurdle, but I didn't. I could see it. So when you say you can't be what you can't see, you can see where you're going. You just have to convince everyone else. So you don't really need a role model. You know it. You just need a dream.
And I think that's the really hard bit where a lot of people stumble with that hurdle is, you know, we all have big dreams and we all know what we want to be, but there are going to be so many people that you come to head with where they're not going to share the same vision as you. And they're the kind of people you just don't really want in your team.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's building the people around you that are going to build you up. And obviously my Paralympic team were a huge part of that. We were all a group of athletes who had been overlooked and underestimated our entire life. And we kind of all banded together and was like, well, let's show the world what we've got. You know, let's show the world what we're capable of. And the Paralympic movement is blown up. Like, it's huge. I have able-bodied kids now asking me how to become Paralympians when they're older. Like, people want to become Paralympians. They just think that they're superhumans, and I do too.
I do too.
Yeah.
I love that. And what time period do you think that was? Like, has it taken 5 years, 10 years? Like, because for me, who's someone who's not so sensitive to all of that, it's not like sort of a focus in my world. It seemed like almost, you know, overnight that suddenly you were getting the recognition, and I just thought, wow, this is incredible.
Yeah, it has grown hugely, particularly in the last 8 years, but it definitely didn't happen overnight.
Yeah,
you know, the Paralympic Games have actually been around since 1960, and it wasn't really until, I would say, 2018 to 2020 that people really started taking notice. And the real reason behind that drive and behind that change is purely down to commercial television. You know, we were signed as a Paralympic movement to Network 7 at first, and because we were part of a huge network, all of the corporate sponsors suddenly wanted to get involved. And then we saw corporate sponsorship, huge cash injection into the Paralympic movement, and it kind of all just went from there. But that's why it's so important to show, you know, different things on television, diversity on television, because it's redefined to people what's actually possible, and completely changed the landscape of media and the landscape of the way that people see themselves as well.
Yeah, which is fantastic for the next generation, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
really, really great. You've spoken about how you had to follow the same path with your swimming as able-bodied kids. Tell us about that, and who did you look to in those days for inspiration?
So I actually was really inspired to join the Australian swim team by our Sydney 2000 Olympic swimmers. If you think Petria Thomas, Thorpe, Liesl Jones, all of those gods of swimming, I was really inspired by them. And I didn't even know about the Paralympic movement when I was watching Sydney 2000. And so they were a huge part of my inspiration. I would go to training and pretend to be those swimmers and imagine what it would be like to be those swimmers. And it wasn't really till 2004, you know, 4 years after Sydney, when I uncovered the Paralympic movement and saw people that did look like me and how incredible that was. But I never really had role models that looked like the way that I did when I was growing up. So I just tried, I always had this dream of becoming an Olympian because I didn't even know that the Paralympics was an option for me. I trained very, very hard to try and make the Olympics, and didn't realise the amazing world that the Paralympics was going to open for me. But yeah, the inspiration really first started off with the Olympic guys. And, you know, it wasn't until, I suppose, 2020 that we started seeing Paralympic role models. But what's really difficult about the Paralympic system for people that want to go into Paralympic sport is that we have a lot of people that live within Australia that are higher needs when it comes to their disabilities. For me, it was quite easy for me to kind of slip into a mainstream sport. I was as fast as the kids that I was swimming next to, even if they were able-bodied. I had to work a little bit harder, but I had the chance to be as fast as them. For people that have higher needs, you know, high cerebral palsy or are affected in more than one limb, it's really, really hard to enter sport, and there's a huge gap there that needs to be addressed over the next 10 years. I was just, I suppose, lucky in a way that I had a disability that allowed me to join a mainstream swimming club, and I kind of went from there. But we've missed so many potential athletes that could have been the next great Paralympian because we don't really have the systems put in place to support higher needs athletes. It's disappointing.
Yeah. Well, we've still got work to do.
Yeah,
We've
exactly.
Still got work to
well,
do.
I'm on the board of Paralympics Australia now, so really trying to address the gap there.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at, so my category, I race against either leg amputees or arm amputees when I was swimming. We would be like flooded in Australia with all of these swimmers that were kind of missing limbs, and it's a really competitive class, like really competitive classification. You have to be almost able-bodied speed if you want to win a gold medal. With the lower classifications, there's not as many people racing in those events because the support networks aren't really there for them to be elite. So there's actually a really great chance for Australia to win more gold medals if we invest in the higher needs athletes.
Yeah. We need to do that.
Absolutely, we do.
You spoke earlier about getting a silver medal and saying that you could do better and you wanted to win. Like, where do you think you get that sort of warrior, I want to win, I can do better than that, dare I say, never give up?
Yeah.
Where do you think you get that from?
You know what? I've never actually been asked that before. I think my drive to want to be the best probably came, to be honest, from being a twin sister. So I was in a really unique position when I was growing up. I had a twin sister who was able-bodied and I was the twin that had the disability. And her and I kind of navigated the world together. Any obstacle that we faced, we would find our way around it together. But I always knew that I had the potential to be, not necessarily an able-bodied person, but I had the potential to overcome a lot of barriers that I had put in place when I was quite young. So I learned from a really young age, if there's something in front of you that you're struggling with, with the help of a good support team and being really creative, you can kind of overcome 99% of them. So I think the drive to problem solve, firstly, came from that. But then having the competitive angle with my twin sister was a huge driving force because I don't know, I just always wanted to be the best. And I think a lot of it came actually just from being underestimated for most of my life. I saw my potential from what my twin sister and I learnt together as a young child. And then I saw the competitive side from being growing up with her and, kind of just took that and ran with it. Well, swam with it, I should say.
Literally. Because it's interesting, when you think that people sort of wrap you in cotton wool and they think, oh, no, don't do that, you might be disappointed. My experience too was that in the very beginning of my career, it was the people who loved me the most. It was my mother, it was my sister, it was my best friends that would say to me, are you sure you want to quit your day job and do that? Are you sure you want to go out on a limb? You've got a mortgage, So they were the ones who were scared about me going out and trying something and possibly not succeeding and being disappointed. So it wasn't that they were doing it out of malice, they were doing it out of love. Did you experience anything like that? Like, swimming and wanting to win medals against able-bodied athletes. Were your parents protective of you?
No, not really, actually.
Good on them.
They weren't necessarily too protective of me. I grew up in a childhood where we would go out into the wilderness almost and make sure we were back by dinner. They really encouraged me to take lots of risks and...
That's so good.
I've never faced a really difficult challenge and had them worried for if I was going to get my feelings hurt. I think that they could see the benefits of going through that and kind of helping me through that myself rather than preventing me from doing it altogether.
Yeah.
And if I reflect on my swimming career, I was on the swim team for 17 years. A lot of the moments that are really profound to me aren't actually the times where I stood on a medal dais. Like, it was the times where I really, really struggled. I was injured, I had broken something, or COVID, for example. It's the times where I really, really struggled and I got to the other side of it. They're the bits that I'm so proud of, not the medals at all. And I'm so thankful for my swimming career, not because of what it's shown who I could be or what it's shown the rest of the world what people with disabilities can do, but because it was bloody hard. And it wasn't rainbows and unicorns. It's not what you see on the television. 99% of it, you're actually failing a lot of the time, but you learn so much about yourself from pulling yourself up from that and going back to the drawing board and saying, what can I do better next time? And the satisfaction that you feel when you do something right is very rare, but gosh, it's good. It keeps you coming back for more.
Like, in that moment, it's so difficult, but I think if you do it often enough, you understand that it is just a moment. It is just passing. Sometimes it feels like 6 months, but you do know if you go through that and you do the work that there's something.
Yeah.
It might just be a lesson. It could be an improvement. It's on the other side. So I feel like having those lessons early in life really do set you up because you learn that. You learn that I've got to go through this if I want to grow and get better.
Yeah, and I think I've almost become addicted to the growing part, that you've just mentioned there, because if I'm in a period of my life where things are really easy or I'm really comfortable, it's like I get itchy feet, or itchy foot, I should say. And like, I just feel like I have to do something more to, I don't know, just challenge myself. I don't know, it's never ending for me, to be honest. But I absolutely love it.
No, it's good. I love it.
Yeah.
I was talking to Candice Warner the other day, and she was saying she's turning 40, and she said, I said, what are you going to do? You know, because I just turned 60 and I had a big party, and which is so unusual for me. I'm a bit of a recluse. And
that made you uncomfortable.
Yeah. But I said, what are you going to do for your 40th? And she said, I think I might do the New York Marathon. I'm like, what?
That is such a Candice thing to say.
I know. It was like,
So Candice and I were in the jungle together.
I want to talk about that.
And I remember us sitting there being like, what are we doing? But we both loved it. It was the hardest thing we've ever had to do.
You made the Olympic team at age 16. I'm interested to know, when you were stepping onto the global stage, how did that change how you thought about having a disability in sport?
I think, so my first games was the Beijing Games in 2008, and I honestly thought that my whole life was going to change. You know, I was going to this amazing, incredible international multi-sport event that was the epitome of elite sport for people with disabilities as well, the Paralympics. But it was fascinating. My life didn't change at all when I got home. The way that I saw myself didn't really change either. In fact, it probably reinforced my disappointment with where society was versus where I thought people with disabilities were, and the way that we were perceived was, because I saw so many incredible athletes doing things that I'd never seen before, and it completely opened up my whole world. I felt like I stepped out of the Narnia closet into like this perfect world where people with disabilities were accommodated for in every sense that you can imagine. And then I came back, crashing back down to the real world, and realised that people were still asking me if I needed help with my shopping bags, and people were still telling me that it was, you know, really inspirational that I was out doing my supermarketing, like things like that. And so I was really disappointed, but I could see what could be being at the Paralympics. And just because the rest of the world hadn't kind of caught up to that yet, I knew that it was a possibility that it could happen. So I kind of persisted with being on the Australian swim team because I did want to show Australia, I wanted to show the world what the Paralympic movement was like. And the conversation around disability has changed so much in that time. You know, not many people ask me anymore if I need help with my shopping bags. People more ask me, are you a Paralympian? And, I watch the Paralympics. And my favourite Paralympians are Dylan Alcott and Maddie Di Rosario. And I was just like, it's honestly blown me away how big it's grown.
It's incredible. Like, but if people ask you that, they're just trying to be nice.
Yeah,
you know
they
what
are.
I mean? So you can't be angry with them, but you just got to be angry with the world and how it's portraying people with a disability.
Well, those people that say those things to me on the streets, it's always with really good intention. So, of course, I'm going to be really patient with it. And that's the other thing, is that a lot of people don't necessarily use the right language around disability because they haven't been taught. And so I'm really patient with people that want to come up and speak about my disability and may not use the right terminology because at the end of the day, they haven't grown up in an environment where they see people with disabilities in the workplace or people with disabilities playing sports that they just don't know. And I know that things are changing really quickly. Even I'm learning. I was spending time with a young teenager who had an arm amputation a couple of weeks ago, and I called her an arm amputee, and she says, no, I have a limb difference. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a term I haven't used before. So as someone that actually lives with a disability, I'm still learning.
Keep up with it.
I know. So I'm like, how's the rest of the world supposed to keep up with this? Goodness gracious.
And that's it. You just have to be patient, you know, because what's norm in your life, we can both say that, is different for other people. So you have to be patient.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. And just accept people where they are and try to educate them.
Yeah, so 100% I'm on board with that. And I think a lot of people have a bit of anxiety speaking about disability, but I love people asking questions and wanting to learn. I think that speaks more about their character than anything else.
Yeah, good advice, good advice. I do want to ask though, how did you know when you came back from your first Olympic Games, how did you know? Because you said before, I knew it was going to change. How did you know that?
I saw the potential in the Paralympic
Yeah.
movement. So I knew that it was going to change because eventually people would start seeing or learning. I knew that the school curriculum kind of covered a little bit of the Paralympics as well. But I don't know, I just knew it was really empowering for me. Look, if Australia wasn't going to watch the Paralympics, I was going to tell them about it, that's for sure. So in terms of how did I know that people were going to find out about it, if I had to go and show people, footage or tell people about the stories that I learned, I was going to do it. I just loved the movement and I wanted it to receive the recognition that it really did deserve. It changed hugely internationally after the London 2012 Games, only 4 years later, because in London, they were broadcast by Channel 4 and they played this ad campaign called Meet the Superhumans, which is a really great title for the Paralympics. And the Paralympic Games were embraced so much by London that the year after I went back to compete over in the UK, and I was walking down the street with a double arm and double leg amputee. I was a leg amputee myself. I was with someone that was short-statured and someone in a wheelchair. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to turn so many eyes walking down the street looking like this. And no one looked at us twice. Like it was just normal for them after that. And
Were you disappointed?
Yeah, I was like,
I'm a little bit disappointed.
I lost this leg for nothing. Is that what you're telling me?
But that's fantastic.
No, but it was
isn't
super, super cool. And like I've even noticed within Australia, we haven't hosted a Paralympics since Sydney 2000, but even within Australia, just having it on mainstream television, kids, like if I walk down the street with my dogs, kids stop and pat my dogs and don't even look at my prosthetic. And like it's really cool looking. And it is becoming more normal for them. Yeah.
It's great. It's great. The world is changing and in a good way. You've talked before about how much planning went into your transition out of being a professional athlete. Could you offer some insight into how you manage this?
We have seen so many athletes go off the rails when they retire from sport. And it's because a huge part of your identity is wrapped up into being an athlete. It's everything that you live and breathe all day, every day is just being an athlete and wanting to win. So when you step away from that high performance world and you realise, okay, this isn't my life anymore, it can be really, really challenging. And so I think for me, I learnt from a lot of athletes that I'd seen who hadn't necessarily coped with the transition too well. And I knew that I needed to study either a university degree, so I had some kind of tertiary education.
So what age were you when you left?
I retired at 30.
So old.
But I actually had planned to retire after the London 2012 Games at 20, but then I just absolutely got the bug for Paralympics and stayed on for a couple more games. So I'd actually planned to retire after 2012, and I knew that I needed to have some kind of other education or work experience. I couldn't just finish and have nothing. And so I started university. I did a Bachelor in Health and Sports Science. It took me 9 years to finish the degree, though.
But you did it.
But I started that process and just knew that I had to transition. At one point in my life, I couldn't be an elite athlete forever. And so my plan was actually to retire and become a biomechanist for sport. So it's kind of like you analyse race data and just something I decided I didn't want to do. It's a lot of
doesn't sound like Ellie Cole
a lot of
to me.
trigonometry and physics involved, and I wasn't that great at trigonometry or physics at school. But one thing that the swimming gave me that I never realised it would at the beginning was the ability to meet a whole variety of different people. And so I kind of thought, okay, I'm getting, I suppose, conversations with people that general Australians don't get conversations with, you know, prime ministers, people that work in politics, yourself. So I was like, I'm just going to network the shit out of myself here. And so I started networking. I started being mentored by people, learning from people, and then started doing a lot of networking with journalists that I was meeting in the media, and realised that I really loved working in the media. And if I wanted to promote the Paralympics after I'd finished swimming, the media is a great way to do that. And so I started doing a little bit of work in the media before I retired, and found myself on Wild Water Sports. And as soon as I finished, I just kind of threw myself into that. And now my next big goal is to win a Logie. I'm kind of joking when I say that, but I'm not really.
No, I know exactly. So you're putting it out into the universe.
Manifesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I finished school, I was watching, it shows how old I am, I was watching Jana Van on 60 Minutes. and I wanted to be a journalist.
Yeah. You'd be great on 60 Minutes.
Did you hear that? 60 Minutes.
We'll manifest that.
But, so my mother realised that at that time, to be a female on TV,
Hard.
it was like 1 in 200 million. So she talked me out of it. And then, interestingly, when I became a fashion designer, I started to do other things because my name was the business, blah, blah, blah. And I write books now. So it's funny how it takes you back to things.
Yeah.
So...
but you've also done television hosting. That's
I
pretty
know.
much 60 Minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I could do 60 Minutes.
100% you could.
We'll work on it. We'll come up with a plan, yeah.
I'll be your hype girl.
Okay. Okay, since swimming, you've become much more of a public figure, and we love that. It's been really nice getting to know
Thank you.
I feel like I know her already, and we only really met today. You have hosted the Sports Performance Awards or Sport Performance Awards.
Australian
is that right?
Australian Sports Performance Awards. It's called the ASPAs.
ASPAs, that's much easier to say. So you've hosted the ASPA Awards in 2023, you've taken commentator roles, and you've appeared on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. We really need to talk about that. I know that you do it for charity, but where is your mind when you think about going on a show? I know you said, yeah, I'm okay with snakes, I'm okay with toes, I'm okay with all those things, but for me, it would be the being out of control.
Yeah, you'd love it. You have no control in there either.
Even over what you eat.
Yeah, you don't even get control over what time you wake up. They play you. Can I play a recording on my phone?
Yeah. Let's do it.
So in the mornings, they play you. They people don't realise on that show you're sleep deprived, right? Because they wake you up before the sun's even up with this recording. I made the lady who woke us up every morning record it on my phone.
This is a real insight.
So you're laying in bed, right? You're having a great sleep.
Do you call those beds? And you say that's great sleep? Is there mosquitoes?
Well, you're so tired that you just sleep anyway. So if the baboons don't wake you up, you get woken up with this over the PA system.
Good morning, celebrities. Time to rise and shine.
And after 4 weeks of that, you're done. You're done with that. And then if you don't wake up like straight away and get out of bed within like 3 minutes, they'll call you out. So they'll
Good morning, Ellie. Time to rise and shine.
like you don't get any choice in that jungle.
And how loud is it?
It's pretty loud. But the reason why I wanted to do that show, firstly, my cousin was actually on season 2. She came third. She made the top 3, so she did really well. And so I watched her on season 2 and was like, I would love to do this show. It's the only reality television show that I really wanted to do. And so from watching her, I watched every episode, every season of the show, and knew that if I ever got approached, I would 100% do the show because it does make you extremely uncomfortable. And that's what I said I really like being uncomfortable. What would make you more uncomfortable than spending 4 weeks in the South African jungle, having every word that you're saying recorded, having to eat intestines and offal and goodness knows what. And
Do
not
they
only
really taste as bad as...
worse. And the thing that you don't see on television is how badly it smells. And you don't think that once you eat it, it repeats on you for like the next 6 hours and there's no food back in camp for you to like mask the It's just awful. Anyway, what I think really drew me to doing I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here though, was the different personalities in there because I'd spent my whole life around high performance people. Every one of my friends had very similar mindsets, were very driven, but I was going into the jungle with 12 people, I think 12 other campmates who were all really successful in their own industries but very different. And I was like, I wonder how I'm going to go sitting in a jungle for 4 weeks with people that I feel like I couldn't relate to at all. But in the end, you know, we're all so close within like the first 2 days and we really did become a family in there.
And I can't remember his name. I think it was Steve. You taught him how to swim.
Yeah.
Wow. And he was really scared of water.
He was really scared. So his dream was to swim to the waterfall and back. I was scared to teach him how to swim, to be honest. And the only reason that we knew he couldn't swim was because the first couple of days we were in the jungle, he went to the waterfall with Candace Warner and he just stepped out into nothing and he went under the water and then he didn't come back up again. And so Michelle and Candace had to pull him back out. And they got back to camp and we were talking about it. And I was like, Steve, do you know how to swim? And he's like, no, I've never been taught. And he's like, but I do want to swim to the waterfall. And that's the one thing I loved about Steve is you know, he didn't know how to play cricket. He didn't really know how to play sports at all. And that's the only thing we had as entertainment in there. He didn't know how to swim, but he leaned into everything. And I think he probably got the most out of the whole jungle experience than anyone because he just leaned into everything.
Yeah, I could relate to him because I'm British too. I came to Australia when I was 11 and you swam once or twice a year.
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
Like Australia,
it's very different.
Yeah, it is different. But no, that was really lovely to see. Well done.
I was so nervous teaching him because swimming out to the waterfall, I'm not sure if I haven't watched the show, but I'm not sure if they showed this on television.
You haven't watched the show?
No, I think it'll trigger me, to be honest. But
you have to watch the show.
Because I knew okay, this is probably the last day that Stephen's going to be able to swim out to the waterfall. And so I got my laundry bag and I filled it with air, and that was the life-saving device. We did make sure that there were lifeguards in the bushes just in case things did go really wrong. But even if things went wrong, like it was going to take them a couple of seconds to...
And it would traumatise him. He would never learn to swim again. That would be
exactly.
my fear.
So I was like, he said, Ellie, I really want to go to the waterfall today. Let's do it. And so I got my little homemade life-saving device. I swam out to the waterfall myself and I dived under the water and I swam down and down and down and I couldn't see the bottom. I reckon I swam down probably about 2.5 metres and nothing. And so I was thinking, if things go wrong, we're never going to find Stephen again. It was really deep and I was panicking, but I didn't want to show him that and I didn't want to tell him how deep it was. But when we did get out to the waterfall, I got very, very nervous and I was like, okay, touch the waterfall, let's go back in again.
We're good, let's go. Well done. It was. You should watch that.
Yeah.
Maybe just get someone to show you that snippet. Anything without intestines and frogs and toads and all that sort of thing. So doing all these new roles, we're going back, we got a little bit sidetracked by celebrity. Do you think that there's been lessons and experiences that you had as an athlete that helps you now in the new things that you're pursuing?
Oh, hugely. I think everything that I've learned from being an athlete has 100% translated. And even as a person with a disability has 100% translated into my new roles. I think knowing that you can't be perfect at anything, it's funny as athletes, we chase perfection, like we become obsessed with it. And if I reflect back on my swimming career, I think out of the thousands of races that I swam, I would only consider maybe 2 of them to be perfect. So I think having that mindset going into my new roles has been really helpful, knowing that we kind of have to start somewhere. Also, every single time I work on television or every single time I work in the boardroom or anything, I always make sure that I give myself like a bit of a reflection feedback thing. And so I'm really lucky. My partner watches all of the television that I do.
And she's taken notes.
Absolutely nitpicks. Like, for example, if I'm interviewing someone and they're next to me and I'm leaning back like this to try and take in what they're saying, apparently that doesn't look very personal. So the next time I go on,
what are you talking about?
I lean in.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. So like literally nitpicks, and I love it. I love the whole feedback thing, and I think I learned that from being an athlete. That if you want to get better at something, even if you don't want to hear it, that sometimes hearing the things that you don't want to hear is the best thing that you can do.
Tell me about these. Putting things out there and having big, audacious dreams. Are you that person who, I think I already know the answer to this question, but just to verify it, are you that person who just slowly does the work and proves people wrong or prove yourself right or that it's possible? Or do you like throw it out into the universe and talk about it so you're completely committed that if you back out now, you're going to look a bit foolish? Yeah,
you can't back out. I throw it out there. And the amount of things that I've thrown out there and then it's come back at me, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually too scared to do this. It's crazy. Like I'm a Celebrity was one of them. I threw that out there. I made sure let everyone in the production world know that I wanted to do that show. And then when they actually asked me to do it, the first thing I wanted to say was, hell no, I'm not doing that. I remember when I retired from swimming, I told everyone I want to be a chef de mission, which is a team general manager of an Olympic or Paralympic team. And within like 3 months, I was asked by Commonwealth Games Australia if I wanted to be the team general manager for the youth team that was going to Trinidad and Tobago, of all places. And the first thing I wanted to say was, no, I'm good, thank you. But then I was like, no, I've thrown it out there, now I have to do it. But all of those things that I've thrown out there that have been really scary when they've actually come back and I've gone through with, have been so rewarding, and I've learned so much about myself. Like, it's just been unbelievable. And I think that's reinforced the importance of actually doing that, is that everyone feels scared. If you have to commit to something huge and that you've never done before, and of course you're going to question everything, everybody feels scared about doing that, but it's the people that actually lean into it and step into it that by far get the most out of it, I think.
Yeah, I think
It's so scary.
Yeah, but I think when people see Ellie Cole doing these things, they just don't think you're scared.
I am.
Yeah, and when I do things, I am petrified.
Yeah.
But you think, I'm just going to give it a go. And at the end of it, you feel so good. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. I think, when we were living in the US for a while, I didn't want to drive. And then I drove and thought, I'm pretty cool.
I think we're just naturally catastrophizers. Humans tend to, when they're processing something, tend to lean naturally into the worst case scenario, and it very rarely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, I think for a lot of people, it's just looking foolish or looking silly or being embarrassed. It's something as silly as that, really, where I think the world's changing and we're just going to cheer you on for giving a go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give it another go.
Yeah,
Try it again
absolutely.
next year or next week,
And I also feel like all the times that I have, if and when I do make a fool of myself, the world moves on very, very quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
But I remember being a young swimmer and looking at Grant Hackett and Jodie Henry and thinking that they seemed like superheroes to me. They seemed untouchable, nothing fazed them. And then when I became an athlete myself at that level and got to actually know those athletes as people, they're more scared than most of the population.
Yeah, especially because they've had a level of success.
Yeah.
And when they go back to possibly get more success, it's almost like they've got something to lose.
Yeah.
But
But after a while, you kind of crave that feeling, being a little bit scared of something. It's a bit of an adrenaline hit, I think.
Well,
but
that's
then
how
you
you're going
start
to get
worrying
closer.
about years running out too.
Don't talk to me about that. Next question. I'm going to Okay, so can we talk about the farm? So it's your parents' farm?
Yeah, my parents have a sheep farm.
Okay, so they're the only animals. I was just watching you on social and we've just bought a farm and I just want to get animals, but I only want cute things.
Yeah.
Yours
I'll do a
is,
list for you.
serious.
Alpacas.
I would love that. Which are the ones that spit at you though?
I don't know.
Llamas?
I don't know. My mum bought 8 alpacas, right?
I saw that.
But she's sold most of them because they're supposed to protect the sheep. They just flock together and don't do anything.
Yeah, that was just like a sales pitch.
You have to get alpacas. You have to get a couple of chickens. They're super cute.
Yeah. As long as they don't have to kill anything.
I think you should have one of those farms kind of like that people come to look at the cute animals.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah.
You can do experiences and then you can do a
pets.
boot camp at the farm.
Maybe not.
You want to separate? Yeah.
Okay, you've been described as being relentlessly driven when it comes to equality in parasports and for women in sport, which I love. I love that about you. While so much has changed when it comes to visibility for the disabled, what do you think are the next steps for improving this in Australia?
Oh, goodness me. So it's been really interesting stepping out of sport where I've seen what's possible with equality, not just with people with disabilities, but a lot of people from underrepresented groups, I'd say. So stepping out of sport and thinking wow, it's come so far for people with disabilities, and then stepping out into the real world, which was a real shock to see that there are a lot of barriers that I faced early in my athletic career that kind of came tumbling down throughout the years, that when I stepped into the real world in 2020, I was like, they're still all there for people with disabilities. People with disabilities, they still struggle to access most parts of our communities. Our communities aren't that accessible. Sure, compared to Europe, there are a little bit more, but still struggling to access cafes, restaurants, still struggling to gain employment, still struggling to go away on weekends because the tourism industry doesn't cater for people with disabilities. And so if I think about what's next, sure, it's come a long way in sport, but I'd like to see that translate into other areas.
Yeah, I agree.
Effectively, I would just like to see a world where someone has a disability, no matter how severe that disability is, and they have the same opportunities as any other member of their family. They don't have to say, I can't go to this event or I can't go to this restaurant because of my disability. I think that's what I want to see, but we're a fair bit away from that.
I want to see that too.
Yeah.
I want to see that too. Okay, so besides getting a Logie, what's next for Ellie Cole?
Well, actually, whilst I do want to do some pretty lofty things, I also just want to relax a little bit. I've had a massive year this year. Did I'm a Celeb, so I was away for 6 weeks for that, and then I was over in Paris for the Olympics doing the coverage, and then back here for the Paralympics. It's just been full on. I really want to keep working in the media.
Yeah.
I've actually got a couple of really exciting projects coming up. One of them I can't talk about yet, but I've got a book coming out, a children's book.
When's
in
that coming
April
out?
1.
April, what's
so
up with that?
it's called Felix and His Fantastic Friends. Title yet to be confirmed. But it's a book all about school-age kids. It's actually, the setting is in a school of how to have conversations around different types of disabilities. So, so those that are going to school, if they see someone that's different to them, they know how to go up and have a conversation and include them in play. And it's also a bit of an education piece around different types of disability, and I've fallen in love with it. I have this character in the book, their name, non-binary, is Dash, double leg amputee on Blade Runners. Super cool athlete. Actually want to turn Dash into maybe a bit of merch.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah,
and that's a really
cool.
great way. Start when they're young, educate them. It's a really nice way for parents to teach their children.
Well, it's been incredible. I have a niece and nephew, and they've grown up, obviously, with Auntie Ellie, who has one leg. And I'll never forget the time where I was out in a paddock at my parents' sheep farm, and I said to my little niece at the time, she was only, I think, 3.5, I said, like, Auntie Ellie's leg is about to run out of battery because I have to charge the leg. And she went off and got my charger, and she tried to, put the charger onto my prosthetic, and then she's like, where do I plug it into? And it's just so normal for her.
Yeah.
It was normal for me to say, Lauren, can you go and fetch my leg? And she'd come walking over with a leg that was like nearly toppling her over. Like, it's just a conversation for her and disability, and obviously her growing up knowing all of my friends that have a disability. She is excellent. She's better at talking about disability than I am, and I have one.
And it's those moments that you realise it is possible.
Yes.
It is possible for it to be normalised. And
it is.
Yeah.
So it's really, really cool to see that. And I think Felix and His Fantastic Friends, the children's book, I think it's going to make a really positive impact in an area that was really lacking when I was young. And to be honest, if I look at children's books now, there's, I suppose, a lot of representation in different areas, but not necessarily around able-bodied kids who want to learn about disability. Yeah.
no, that's great. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's so cute. I'll show you the cover of it later.
I have a nephew who's like 19 months, so I'll get one for him.
Yeah, I'll send you one.
No. I want to support my friends. I like to buy them, but thank you. I appreciate it. As you know, this is a Never Give Up podcast, and we're asking all of our guests to share with us a moment when they felt like giving up but didn't.
Oh, that's a really good one. I think a moment where I felt, there's so many. There are honestly so many. I think a moment that I really felt like giving up was around London 2012 at the Paralympics. There's, as we know, a lot of cultural issues when it comes to sport. I didn't have the best experience with one of my coaches leading into those games, and I had this awful experience for 2 years after the London 2012 Games where I couldn't even look at like a glass of water without it bringing back all of these awful memories. And it was really hard for me. So I had to take 2 years out of the sport completely. I didn't swim at all. And then I started actually coaching and started teaching kids how to swim, and became so incredibly proud of the progress that they were making. And it almost took me back to the very beginnings of being an athlete and grassroots sport and the connection to community. And that was kind of what healed me slowly and got me back into the water. So it was a moment where I felt like giving up, but I had a really good community around me that made me feel safe again and got back into the pool. And that's how I became Australia's greatest female Paralympian of all time.
Yeah.
That never would have happened if I didn't have those guys there.
We're grateful for that. We are grateful for that. What would we do without you? Okay, fast 5 questions.
Fast 5. Here we go.
What is the first thing you do in the morning to set yourself up for the day?
I have a coffee. Not healthy. What's the first thing you do?
Water.
Okay.
I have
Maybe
it by
I'll
the
change
side of my bed.
Yeah.
So, okay, second, what song or artist is your go-to when you need some hype or motivation?
Celine Dion, It's All Coming Back to Me Now.
Oh, coming.
Oh my gosh, so good.
She's amazing. Proudest moment.
Wait, I want to know what your hype song is.
I don't have a hype song, but mine is like Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. Like when I'm going through something, shake it off.
Oh yeah, that's
shake
good.
It off.
Because the lyrics really speak to you as well as the vibe of the song.
Yeah. Proudest moment.
Proudest moment, pay parity for Australian Paralympians in Tokyo. Yeah, because that's going to happen forever now.
Yeah. Something that surprises people about you.
Oh, a lot of people get surprised when I tell them that I was an athlete, if they didn't already know. So people that aren't familiar with me, if I say I was an athlete, because a lot of people see me now as the girl that works on TV. So I go, I was actually an athlete, and then I pull out all of these like medals, and they're like, okay.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
It's sort of, it's that they think that you've been doing what you're doing now for so long.
I know.
Because you're so good at it.
But I surprise myself when I tell myself I've been an athlete as well, because I don't feel like that anymore.
Wow.
I don't really like that. I look at pictures of myself being a swimmer and it does not relate to me at all.
Well, we can't forget about it. You've won too many medals.
I know.
We've got the footage to, Okay, last one. One way to describe 2025 for you.
Family.
Oh.
I'm going to say family.
Love that.
I just want more time with my family.
That.
Okay, but before we finish up, I want to ask what your proudest moment has been.
My proudest moment is for being accredited and recognised for being the first person to coin the phrase activewear.
You have to put that on your Instagram handle.
I should.
Yeah, you should own that.
I don't even know what mine says, to be honest.
And what does 2025 say for you? What word?
Well, I made one up.
Yeah?
Next level.
That's 2 words. So
I know,
you're going to have to amalgamate the 2.
But if you put a hyphen and say it fast enough, next level. Next level.
Level. No, we need a different word. We'll workshop that.
Yeah.
And we'll put it on a Lorna Jane T-shirt.
Oh, I know someone who can organise that.
See, it's all about your networks.
You should see some of the T-shirts I've made for people. You would, it's horrible. Okay, thank you.
I loved it. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to your gorgeous living room.
I know, it's quite pretty, isn't it? But one last thing before we go. Thank you for coming on the show. As you know, this series is about sharing inspiring women like Ellie Cole's story, but it's also about giving back. And for coming on the show, we would like to donate $5,000 to a charity of your choice. Who would you like us to give it to? And can you tell us why this charity means so much to you?
That means a lot to me. Thank you for supporting charities. Charities work very, very hard. Okay, so I'm gonna donate that actually to a charity that's very, very close to my heart because they helped me personally as well as my family. They're called Challenge. They're in Melbourne. They're a kids with cancer charity, but they don't necessarily do research like a lot of cancer charities do. They support the well-being of families and connect families again together because cancer just can sometimes really create obviously a lot of stress and tension within families, but they spend all of their time supporting the child that has cancer that they don't have enough time to spend together. So Challenge was an amazing way for me to be able to reconnect with my siblings when I was going through cancer, and they supported me all the way up until I was 18. And I'm very, very close still with them. I touch in regularly with them, but they're doing amazing work just to bring a bit of happiness back into those families.
Well, great. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That means a lot to me.
Year.
That's just made my whole year.